Osiamna siaya, anthapek qualosalton tenitsanakl snanemoch, heitzepka quanzalaps kakipatana quail. I'm Eliot Whitehill Qualosalton. I'm an artist and storyteller from the Snuneymuxw First Nation. I'm really grateful to be here with you today. I was asked by the First Nations Forestry Council to do a logo for Forestry Connect, as well as a set of illustrations for the project. I wanted to celebrate our teachings and our traditions and how they relate to our relationship with the land and with the forests. And you know, for me as a Coast Salish artist, I draw so much inspiration from those teachings and from practices like basket weaving and blanket weaving, where we're harvesting resources and materials and using them in really important cultural practices and making this beautiful art out of it. And so I really wanted to try to do something that honored that history and to do it in a modern way and in my own way. The forest is a place where we're kind of taught humility in a lot of ways, where we're reminded that we're just a small part of something that's so much bigger with all the different systems and the different ecosystems in place, the scale of things, you know, the trees, the plant life, down to the bugs and insects and everything that's happening. You know, in Salish culture, we're taught that, you know, everything that we have comes from the world around us, and that the energy of the land is there to help us. And for us as human beings, it's learning how to open ourselves to connect with that energy and to go to the land and ask for help, and that when we do, it'll be there for us. I was referencing both blanket and basket weaving with the designs that I did, which kind of have their own visual languages, but it's very much this sense of strong geometric shapes and design and pattern, and it honors the flow of movement in a way, and it honors the connection that we have to the materials. And I wanted to try to do something that would achieve in a graphic design sense what my ancestors did with their own weaving patterns. So that was a lot of what was driving the ideas behind that piece. The use of animals in the Forestry Connect project is really interesting, and to me it really stands out because in my teachings with storytelling from my great-grandma, Ellen White, she talked about how we use animal characters instead of people. Like when you're telling a story from the past, you don't want to use specific names, like you don't want to draw that person's energy. And it kind of becomes this really beautiful way to create something that is metaphorical to the human experience, but also, like, in our cultural understanding, all of these beings are people, all of these beings have spirits and have reason, and they're just like us, but they're transformed in different ways. You know, when it comes to forestry and talking about the land, I think that's a really powerful way to make that connection. Like, through doing the quiz and through learning these stories, we can learn something more about ourselves. And like, if you get the bear, if you get the eagle, it doesn't have to cover everything, but you can think about that and think about how it relates to you. What different parts of these different animals do you connect with? In the Forestry Connect project, the bear really represents courage and determination. They have such a unique connection to the land where they're almost like seasonal workers in a way. They're harvesting and then they sleep through the winter. So often in art, bears are depicted in kind of like fierce or ferocious ways. And I wanted to kind of flip that a little bit with my design and to show kind of a more gentle or tender moment where the bear is picking huckleberries. And, you know, instead of just like gnashing all of them off the branch at once, the bear is kind of picking them one by one and speaking to that really like intrinsic connection that the bear has with the land and the forest, and that it has a place within this ecosystem and within this life cycle. The eagle in Forestry Connect represents wisdom and observation skills and, you know, really being able to think about the big picture. The eagles are always high up, but they're able to see. They see clearly, they see what's happening around them, and they have this really unique connection with the salmon. it's said that no person has ever caught a fish by virtue of their own skills or abilities. Rather, it's entirely by the generosity of the salmon. And that's how it is for the eagle and the salmon, where the salmon are giving themselves up and the eagle's respecting that. And for us as people, what does it mean when we're thinking about our relationships with the land, when we're managing the land? What does it mean for us to be respectful of the generosity and to look after it for the future? The hummingbird represents humility and interpersonal connections, and I think that really relates to a lot of our traditional teachings around the hummingbird. And to me, the hummingbird has always been representative of medicine, and that the medicine that the hummingbird carries is both for us, but it's also for the land and for the systems of the forest, where the hummingbirds pollinate different species and they participate in that plant life cycle in that way. And there's a lot of energy and stories around them. And so for me, I really love the hummingbird design. It's one of my favorite ones that I did. And it has the flowers, and if you look closely, there are little faces in the flowers. And so again, it's speaking to that the connection that the hummingbird has between these plants is the same that we have as humans between us and the forest and the world around us. In Forestry Connect, the orca represents temperance and humility. The orca is absolutely a player in resource management, and the stories that we have, they're known as transformers. Like I was talking about how there's stories about the orcas transforming into wolves so they can hunt on the land, and then the wolves transform into orcas so they can hunt on the water, and the versatility of that. And in Snuneymuxw, where I come from, we also have stories about how we're related to the orcas, how a group of children weren't being included in the teachings, and so to prove themselves, they transformed themselves into an orca, and they weren't able to transform back. And so because the elders weren't including the children in the teachings in this way, we lost that generation of children in our community. But what that means for us now is that we're related to those orcas. The killer whales around here are the descendants of those ancestors of ours. And the teachings that they carry, they have so many different teachings for us. And so that's kind of the way that I was thinking about it, representing this continuation of teachings and intergenerational change and the shifts that we take and the different intersections that we come across. That's what the orcas represent for me. In Forestry Connect, the wolf represents justice and I think coming together to work together, collaboration. I think that with wolves, there's this common conception of the lone wolf mentality, and it's really not the case. I think wolves are more dependent upon each other than most species are, like the packs, the systems, the social relationships that they have with each other, the territorial relationships that they have. Like they respect each other's territories and they have their own as well. When I worked in forestry, you have your crew. You don't want to be working alone. It's not as safe, like you got to rely on people in case something happens. So that's really what stands out to me. It's been so special to get to share Coast Salish art and culture through this project, and that through sharing my art and through sharing these stories, I really hope that connection is strengthened with the people who are there, with the people who are learning.